The older we get, the more we realize that earning money is hard, but spending it is incredibly easy. And finally, we understand the meaning behind our parents' words when they used to tell us to be more patient when we asked for something because they simply didn't have the money at the time. That's adulthood. There are bills and loans to pay, burdens and responsibilities to carry on our own. All we can do is navigate the bitter and sweet moments of life as best we can. So, stay strong. For those of you who are struggling right now, enjoy watching. And don't forget to subscribe to Orion Storyline so you don't miss out on other movies. When they were kids, these little children were free to dream about anything they wanted. Even their parents would feel proud, no matter how small their accomplishments were. But once they grew up, they finally understood that life isn't as easy as they thought it was when they were younger. Many dreams had to be set aside just to live in reality. At least, that's what a guy named Will thought. One day, Will, who had been unemployed for a long time after graduating college, was finally able to bring good news to his parents. He had just been hired as a video editor at a prestigious company. The same thing happened with Will's girlfriend, Jillian, who had also just been hired as a sales analyst. Excited by the news, Will's father, Roger, gave Will a large amount of money. Will then used the money to buy a huge TV, which made Jillian furious. How could Will spend that much money on something so useless? Will currently lives in a rented house with 3 friends whose lives are also unclear. Jillian has never liked Will hanging out with his friends because, in her opinion, all of them are irresponsible and unemployed. She was afraid that Will would end up going down the wrong path like them. The next day, on Will's first day of work, his boss suddenly told him he was fired. Not because Will was late, but because the company was facing financial difficulties and had to lay off most of its employees. Of course, the news shocked Will. He had just started working and was already fired. He tried to convince his boss to keep him, but it was no use. The decision was final and couldn't be changed. As a result, Will could only accept his fate. Even though he felt defeated, Will continued searching for other job opportunities until he saw an opening for a hotel receptionist. He immediately applied for the job and was fortunately hired right away. On his first day working as a hotel receptionist, Will welcomed a black guest named Skeezy. Strangely, Skeezy booked a room for an elderly man and a woman. Not wanting to overthink it, Will just went back to doing his job. The next morning, when Will's boss arrived, the police suddenly came and surrounded the hotel. It turned out the police were there because Will had unknowingly allowed guests to use the hotel for prostitution. Skeezy turned out to be a pimp. Even though his boss had warned him not to accept guests carelessly, Will's negligence cost him his job once again. Now that he didn't have any money at all, Will asked his father for help. But to his surprise, his father had also been laid off from his job. From now on, his father wouldn't give him any more money. Will was an adult and needed to earn money with his own hard work. Meanwhile, Jillian, who felt sorry for her boyfriend's bad luck, tried to encourage Will. She believed that sooner or later, he would find a new job because usually, when the journey is tough, the reward at the end is extraordinary. The most important thing was for Will to keep applying for as many jobs as possible. On the other hand, Roger, Will's father, was also seen applying for a job at a big company. Unfortunately, his application was rejected because Roger had a beard, which made him look too old. For the company, appearance was the #1 priority. Facing this bitter reality, Roger tried to calm his heart and mind by stopping by a cafe. Like a psychic, Kami, the cafe owner, seemed to know that Roger was having a rough day. Kami then comforted Roger, telling him that he wasn't alone in going through tough times. Everyone is currently fighting their own battles. Meanwhile, what happened with Will was that he eventually landed a job interview for a position as a video resume creator at a multimedia company. Will was interviewed by a manager named Wilheimer, where he shared his experiences as a video editor, mentioning how much he enjoyed editing videos and uploading them to YouTube. During the interview, Will received a chat from Jillian, which he immediately replied to on the spot. Seeing Will's lack of manners, Wilheimer asked him to leave the room right away. However, instead of leaving, Will showed his latest edited video, which featured Skeezy promoting his illegal business. After returning from the interview, Will was forced to sell his huge TV so he could afford to eat daily. Not long after, Will received a call saying he was hired and would be paid $26,000. Upon hearing this, Will immediately decided not to sell his TV. However, before he could start working, Will had to take a drug test. Because he had used drugs before due to his deep anxiety about his future, Will asked his father, Roger, to provide a urine sample. Initially, Roger refused, but realizing that he didn't want his son to remain unemployed, Roger finally agreed to help. The next day, during the drug test, Will walked awkwardly to hide the urine sample Roger had given him, which he had concealed in his pants. While the HR officer waited outside the bathroom, Will struggled to pour the sample into the designated container. Eventually, Will passed the drug test, meaning he was cleared to start working the next day. Jillian gifted Will an expensive tie, hoping that this time he could keep his job long-term. The next morning, Will was assigned to create a video resume for a client according to the office's guideline book. But Will ignored it completely and instead created the video based on his own imagination. A while later, Will confidently presented the edited video to his boss, Catherine. Seeing that the video didn't follow the company's guidelines, Catherine immediately scolded Will. She reminded him that every company has its own rules. If Will wanted to keep working there, he had to follow the rules. Starting the next day, Catherine demanded that Will dress neatly like a professional and edit video resumes strictly according to the guideline book. If Will violated the rules again, Catherine wouldn't hesitate to fire him on the spot. Will later shared what had happened with Roger. Deep down, Will was reluctant to follow the company's dress code. To him, a professional office look didn't suit someone like him, a video editor. Hearing this, Roger became frustrated. No matter the position, Will was being paid for his job and had to follow the rules if he didn't want to start his own company. Roger reminded Will to be grateful because, after being unemployed for so long, he finally had a job. Besides, it was better to suffer wearing clothes he didn't like than to suffer as a broke, unemployed person. Following his father's advice, Will went to work the next day dressed as neatly as possible. Days turned into weeks, and finally, payday arrived. Without hesitation, Will treated his father to a meal at their favorite restaurant. In his heart, Will felt incredibly happy because he could finally treat his father using money he earned from his hard work. After their meal, Will invited Roger to visit his office. Will couldn't bear seeing his father constantly sad because he was still unemployed. At the office, Roger confided that he really wanted to work at a company owned by a businessman named James. Unfortunately, Roger hadn't received a callback for an interview yet. Hearing this, Will felt sad and decided to create a video resume for his father. While Roger was sharing his aspirations about wanting to work again, Will secretly recorded him. One day, Catherine told Will that he had to work overtime that evening to edit videos. To stay awake, Will asked an office boy to buy him some energy pills, which immediately perked him up. Fueled by the boost, he enthusiastically edited his videos. While he was in the middle of editing, Will suddenly received a call from his friend saying that one of his edited videos on YouTube had gone viral. Soon after, Will received a job offer with an incredibly lucrative salary from a digital agency. However, Will didn't accept the offer right away, considering that he already had a comfortable job. When Will was about to share this news with Jillian, he found her crying uncontrollably. It turned out Jillian had just been fired from her job because she was caught having a lot of debt. Jillian then moved into Will's rental house. Seeing how messy the place was, Jillian quickly cleaned it until it was spotless, leaving no speck of dust behind. Meanwhile, what happened with Roger was that he was now visibly frustrated because his job applications still hadn't yielded any results. So frustrated was he that he kept asking Kami how much longer he would have to remain unemployed. Feeling desperate, Roger decided to take matters into his own hands by going directly to James's company. Unfortunately, Roger had already been blacklisted by the company for persistently asking when he could get a chance to meet Jim. At the same time, Will noticed his father's latest tweet, which seemed to suggest that Roger was about to do something reckless and dangerous. Will quickly asked his friend to track his father's location, and when Will was about to ask Catherine for permission to step out for a moment, the fire alarm suddenly went off. Will used the opportunity to go and find his father. After searching high and low, Will finally found Roger. But at that moment, Roger was being escorted out by security. Not long after, Roger spotted James arriving. Will quickly helped his father chase after James. When Roger finally got to meet James, he desperately tried to convince him that he deserved to be hired. Roger acted this way because he was truly at his wit's end. Roger then handed James a videotape containing his resume. A few minutes later, Roger came out and asked security to let his son go because he had now been hired by James's company. The next day, Will panicked when he saw one by one his co-workers being laid off due to mass layoffs. Will was then summoned by Catherine, which gave him a sinking feeling. He thought he was about to be fired, but to his surprise, Catherine actually promoted him to deputy head of corporate communications. If Will accepted the promotion, he would have to sign a new contract and would receive a monthly salary of $52,000. When Will tried to share this news with Jillian, he found her too engrossed in playing video games to listen to him. Annoyed, Will turned off her game, but instead of feeling guilty, Jillian simply continued playing. It wasn't until that night, just before bed, that Jillian was ready to have a serious conversation. During this time, Will told her about his promotion and his plan to take her to a company event the following evening. The next evening, Will introduced Jillian to Catherine. Sensing that Catherine might have feelings for Will, Jillian suggested that Will resign and join a digital agency that had previously offered him a job. Without much hesitation, Will informed Catherine that he wouldn't accept the promotion and that he would resign. Unwilling to accept his decision, Catherine became furious, vowing that no company would ever hire Will again. Not long after, a scandalous video of Catherine and Wilheimer spread widely. Will accidentally discovered the video while working late editing footage. After that, Will joined the digital agency that had offered him a job earlier. However, after completing a project, Will decided to resign because he wanted to start his own video production company. From that moment on, Will successfully established his own production company with the help of his friends.